PLD Projects presents Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast featuring PLD and Matty Gunner. May the Force be with you, always. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to PLD Projects. I am your host, PLD, and this is, as always, my very best friend in the Star Wars universe, Mr. Matty Gunner. How you doing, my friend?
I'm your best friend.
In the Star Wars universe, yes.
Okay. You are also my best friend in the Star Wars universe. Sorry, Sean. He's paying me to say it.
It's a galaxy far, far away. You can't touch you there. Welcome to Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast. This is, I don't even know what number episode this is, but this is a cool episode because we are taking a look back instead of a current review. We're taking a look back in preparation for a current review. As you all know, Vision Season 2 comes out for May the 4th be with you as well. So come out late tonight. Early tomorrow morning, I'll be watching that, and we will be back tomorrow for a special bonus episode of Holy Snokes where we will break down Vision Season 2. But that's tomorrow. Tonight, we are talking about Vision Season 1, a look back, if you will. And before we start, Matty, what did you think about Visions when you first heard about it, and maybe your overall thoughts on Vision Season 1 before we break it down?
So, when I initially heard that there was going to be Star Wars anime, my ears perked up because I'm not the biggest anime fan, but I've watched numerous of them over my youth. Obviously, Dragon Ball Z, like, you've only got to know me for 2 minutes before you know, oh yeah, that dude definitely watched Dragon Ball Z growing up. I mean, the gym shirt that I usually wear, the shirt I usually wear to the gym says training to go Super Saiyan. Gundam Wing, Tenchi Muyo, Evangelion, Naruto, Death Note. Like, these are all anime that I've watched. Yes, they are the big, like, main anime, so no one, like, anime purists and elitists, shut up. So I was really excited for it. And then they all dropped together, and I binged them all at once. And the one thing that I noticed was the theme of paying homage to Kurosawa, who, if you know me, you know I think Kurosawa is the greatest filmmaker of all time. So I was very much like, yes, okay, this is for me.
Absolutely fair. It's interesting that when I heard about it, I was kind of in between. My son, I've mentioned a few times, is really into animation in general, and he's gotten me into some anime specifically. He always looked at the anime more than I ever did. I never had anything against anime, just not anything I really ever gravitated towards when I was younger. I actually appreciate it more now because my son has shown me a few anime, and I'm kind of getting into it a little bit on my own. But when this came out, I was still excited about it because I like the idea of I'm getting 9 episodes of a Star Wars, 9 basically standalone Star Wars shorts from different companies and different studios, and that always excites me because it's so many different pieces of talent working on something I love. I knew I was bound to love something, bound to maybe something not so much, so to speak, but it was exciting because it was different, very outside that little realm I've been into. Now, I will give you a quick overview of my thoughts that I find interesting because I rewatched season 1 yesterday. I watched the whole season 1 yesterday in preparation for today. And I definitely found that I goes into it a little more and I enjoyed it a little bit more. And I think it's partially, like I said, because I've gotten into anime more since the last time I watched it. But also, just a note for myself and like how I view myself. So your miles may vary on this. I find I enjoy things, especially Star Wars wise, on a second watch more than the first watch, almost always. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't mean like I can't watch an episode of Star Wars like Mandalorian, something blows me out of the water right away and I love it. That happens too. But a lot of times what I find is I like something more second watch. And I think the reason is Star Wars is so familiar to me in a way. Star Wars in general, it's a familiar, it's a comfort zone for me. I've watched the original trilogy so many times. I've watched a lot of episodes so many times. And it's comfortable. So when I watch something new, there's that little like minor state of incomfortability of like I don't know what's happening next. I'm not familiar with this. Something seems off because I don't know it like the back of my head. It's something Star Wars that I don't know like the back of my head yet, and I kind of like feel like it holds me back a little bit. But then the second time I go through, I'm like, okay, I see where I am now. I've seen this before. I know what I'm getting into. Let me actually take in instead of looking and then like taking to the surface. I can go, okay, now what is this story telling me? What is this story trying to do? That kind of thing. So I feel like a second view of everything for me, especially in Star Wars, is very important. And I will say I liked every episode. I liked every episode of Visions. Some definitely more than others, but even the ones I didn't like, I definitely found like this time through. But yeah, we will get into that. We will definitely get into the breaking down of Vision season 1. We're not going to do it beat by beat. Like that's just not the Holy Snokes way. We have a couple of not segments, I would say, just some of the
custom-made categories.
Custom-made categories. I didn't bother making the quick quips and everything else because they're it's not quite that kind of thing. But
yeah,
it's also hard to do those kind of categories, our old categories, in like 5-minute episodes or 10-minute episodes. So
especially because each one of these stories, I think this is one thought I literally just thought of on the spot. Each one of these stories goes back to what Star Wars is at its core, and that's fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Like these stories, we got the Ronin book, but these stories aren't canon. They're not bound to the limitations of the timelines. So you can literally go off and do whatever the hell you want.
Right.
And I feel like that's probably why we enjoyed them more the second time around, because we're not thinking about, oh my god, how does this lead into the Mandoverse? Or, you know, is the Ronin going to show up in the Endgame movie? No, we're just like sitting enjoying these space shorts, like these random stories. So
yeah, I know. I absolutely agree with you. And like, it's like 9 alternate universes. They don't fit in everything, so we don't have to worry about how everything connects. I guess
it's
that's
Star Wars What If.
It is basically Star Wars What If, with the only difference being we don't have any really familiar characters. I mean, occasionally a Boba Fett or Jabba in there, occasionally little things, but there's no like. It's not like a Star Wars Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader, and it's not like the big
Wedge.
Characters. Wedge.
We do get Wedge in season 2.
That's what I did here. So I'm excited about that. I'm actually excited about that. I kind of one thing I did wish I almost wish we got a little bit more of the occasional appearance by somebody like a secondary character like a Boba Fett or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's fine. That's perfectly fine. They definitely did their own take on things, and obviously they have takes on things which I'm not sure. I'm not even sure I agree with. But I was able to put aside anything I didn't agree with as far as the takes. I kind of went again. It's like an alternate universe. Okay, so I can wipe away my view of what is Star Wars or what the rules of Star Wars is, because this is like an alternate universe and not
the only rule is there are no rules.
Exactly. We're looking forward to that, though. I'm actually looking forward to talking about season 1, and I can't wait to watch season 2 tonight. I'm really excited about it. From what I've heard it's even greater than season 1. I mean,
I've only watched the Aardman one, which shout out to Matty and Luke from Star Wars Sessions podcast. They got me into the Visions panel on the Celebration Station. We got to watch the Aardman one. Hilarious. Nice. It is that Wallace and Gromit style humor in Star Wars, and it's awesome.
I love it. I love that. I can't wait for it. I really can't wait. I'm excited about all of them. I've heard some good things about them, some emotional things, some hilarity things. Bring it on. But before we do that, we do have a couple of other news bits we like to do. We always like to take some news bits. It's funny, like we're just recently for the Mandoverse, we had prearranged our format and did the review first and news afters. For this, since this is a kind of a retro thing, it's just not like a drawing you into the Mando review. I think we'll go back to our old style, do the news first, and we'll get into Visions. Got 5 news stories I want to talk about, and 1/6 minor one is what I throw at the beginning there. We forget to say sometimes as a adult Star Wars fan that Vision Season 2 isn't the only Star Wars thing that's happening. We do have the Young Jedi Adventures coming out as well, and we're not going to necessarily cover that tomorrow because I'm not going to have a chance to watch it before we record.
I think it's already out. I think I saw it on Disney Plus earlier.
The shorts are out. The shorts are out. Okay. I believe the shorts are on YouTube before they kind of put them on Disney Plus. But I'm going to watch that too because I'm a Star Wars whore. Not going to lie. It doesn't matter if it's for kids, for preschoolers, whatever. I get an alphabet book. It's got Star Wars on it. So I'll watch it, but we probably won't be covering it per se. Maybe mentioning it in passing next week or something like that. Because we have to discuss what we're doing next week. We haven't even discussed that behind the scenes yet, but we'll get there. Let's start off with our news now. Our news bits that we got from this past week. Of course, I curated almost all of it from Star Wars News Net. I do shout them out. I use them so much. They curate the news very well, and they're very straightforward. And whether it's a fact or rumor or wild speculation. The one we got today so far, the first one is definitely a commentary on news. It was Jude Law appearing on The Tonight Show, had a few comments on Skeleton Crew. And I'll see if you have any comments on this. It's not a lot of news per se, but kind of an interesting look behind the scenes. Jude Law commented, said, it's got a little more, as they described it, Amblin, meaning it's an adventure of kids, but it's not in a kid's world. Jeopardy is real. The thing I underestimated was the experience of acting opposite droids and creatures, which of course are all there. And so you get to work with, at times, 5, 6, 7 puppeteers, and these people are masters. I've been very lucky. I've worked with some particularly respectable actors, but I've never been starstruck like what I was when I met a Jawa. I saw a Jawa walking by, and I was like, I can't believe it. It's a real Jawa.
My fucking dude. Justice for Jawas. I'm already hyped for that. Just made me even more hyped. Knowing that there's going to be Jawas in this show.
Yeah, absolutely, right?
Are we going to get like the Boba Fett Tusken Raider episode where he goes on the acid trip and like we learn more about Jawa culture? Because to me, Jawas are, and I can say this, Jawas are just space pikeys. Like they're there at the car boot sale, what you guys would call the swap meet. They're there with like their parts that have like been stolen. They drive around in the sandcrawler, which is essentially like a caravan. I love them. They're like, that's a culture that, you know, I grew up around, so I have an affinity and a love for Jawas that a lot of people don't. So to hear Jude Law say that he was starstruck by seeing a Jawa, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna love this.
What I'm hearing from you, Matty, is you're pitching Guy Ritchie coming to do Tika, a Star Wars story.
Yeah, and Tika Roadshow.
Tika Roadshow, I like that. Nice. I will say, nothing again, like no big news. Amblin, we've heard that a bunch of times now at this point. The fact that they're puppeteers, I like the fact that they are doing some real puppets as well. There's something I love the volume, and I love the special effects Star Wars has built in. That's every once in a while, it's nice to see these real life puppets in there and throw back to the old times. And yeah, I agree. It sounds like Jude's a fan, and I love when fans get to play in this world because it means it fun for them. And like I can understand them, I can empathize with them because I'd be exactly the same way. If I saw a Jawa, if I saw Tika walking by, I'd be like, holy fucking shit, Tika! Oh
At Celebration, I was more stoked to see people walking because there wasn't many. Anytime someone would like walk past that was cosplaying as a Jawa, I would turn on my heels and be like, "Oh, let me take a picture with you, please, 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 please."
Nice, very nice, very nice. All right, the next bit of news that dropped, it was Dave and John who did another interview, this time with Entertainment Weekly. They've been doing a bunch of little interviews recently, and I'm liking it because they're being very as open as they can be. They were discussing initially how their New Republic movie, as I call it. Remember, I'm not calling it a Mandoverse movie anymore. I'm trying to limit my expectations and limit speculation. The New Republic movie will handle crossovers and building the mythology. When asked about that, Dave Filoni said first, we're in the right area code. We are definitely in the right space. I think it's going to be a clamoring of characters saying, how do I get in this picture? And that's what John and I have been figuring out. First comment, I get it. I think that's about right. There's so many characters they'd want to throw in there. You got to figure out which one claims the most real estate, so to speak. And that'll be a dictation of where we are. Is it going to be Din as the star of the movie, as Mando, culminating the Mando universe storytelling, so to speak? Is it going to be Bo-Katan? Is it going to be Luke, Han, and Leia as the original three? Is it going to be Ahsoka? What do you think?
Here's the thing. I'm going to give full credit to Joseph Scrimshaw for this because he's the one that said it. And Ken as well. They both like kind of rebounded off each other at this point. We could have Luke, Han, and Leia. But the way to do it, the right way I feel to do it, is obviously you do Luke the way they've been doing it, deep fake him. Billy Lord coming in to play her mom and bring Orlan back to play Han. That's, if you are going to do that, that's the way to do it. And I am, if that is the way that, like, this is the way for me. And yes, there are going to be a lot of characters. Are we going to see Peli? Probably not. We're going to see Fennec Shan? Probably not. We're going to see Carson Teva? Probably not. A lot of these like smaller characters that we've grown to love are probably going to get pushed to the side. I doubt we're going to see Cobb Vanth. I feel like they're going to be like, okay, who are the big game players? We're going to put them in. If I had to pick, it's probably going to be mostly the cast of Ahsoka, Din, Bo, Grogu, the big three. That might be it.
Possibly, quite possibly.
This
depends on
movie's
where it goes. Where does the story take us? What planets does the story take us? Like if it goes to Tatooine, Peli might show up. You know what I mean? If they decide to have a base, I mean, I could see Carson Teva making a small appearance with the Rebellion, or with the Republic. With have an X-wing battle or something. All of a sudden, you just see Carson Teva in his X-wing. Maybe Luke's heading up Rogue Squadron, and Carson Teva is joining up, talking to him. Could be a lot of little things like that too. We don't know. But I do agree. There's a lot of real estates of warfare, because not only do you have the Mando people, if you're going to bring in Luke, Leia, and Han, there's that second. Well, what other Rebellion era original trilogy characters are we looking at? Are we going to see Akbar? Are we going to see Mon Mothma? I think we are going to see Mon Mothma. I think it'd be bad if we didn't, to be honest.
I think Mon Mothma would be a good one. But if you're bringing in the big three, you can't just have them as a bit at the end, like an Avengers portal scene, and suddenly Luke, Han, and Leia come walking out of it. Like those are the three biggest legacy characters. You can't just shoehorn them in at the end. You got to handle that the right way.
Well, I think you could do it partially like that. And here's what I think. I think if you do it, you tease them in the beginning, like not the beginning, like you bring them in for a small bit somewhere towards the beginning, middle section, maybe depending on who the focus of the story is. Who is our lead focus? Who's our character? We could have them meet with Luke, Han, and Leia. Maybe they have a couple scenes together really quickly. Then Luke, Han, and Leia have to go do something else. And then for the final battle of it, then Luke, Han, and Leia show up and they have a big battle with everybody at the end. You could have it happen. I don't know. I don't know how much I want Luke, Han, and Leia. I do want them, but there is that idea of, well, which way are we going to go? You say you want Alden, Billy, and the young Luke character. I mean, I get that. We've also seen before our very eyes that Kathleen Kennedy does not want to recast anymore, and I think they've been building up this whole de-aging thing with Lucasfilm and Tenor, with Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones, with Luke in Mando and Boba Fett. So I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I'm okay either way. If you tell me tomorrow Alden Ehrenreich is coming back, I'm fine. If you tell me they're de-aging Harrison Ford, depends on how big the part is. It'd be kind of scary if they're going to lead the big three and have them be DH the entire time. But that's just a lot of tough, like a lot of uncanny valley kind of stuff. You're not quite there yet, but it is getting better every day. So I guess there's a lot to be said. Either way, I trust that I'm going to enjoy the story more than anything, and that's the most important part. Everything else I can get behind later, I think.
Yeah, personally, I don't really want the big three to be involved. I know Luke's going to have to be at some point, because nothing that big is going to go down in a galaxy that Luke Skywalker lives in, and like him not at least show up to help save the day. But yeah,
to me,
we'll see when we get there. I guess
I can't see the story without Leia either, because Leia and Mothma being if it's New Republic and Imperial Remnant, Leia is one of the leaders, and I think it's hard.
She's the one that I'm like, I can deal with them de-aging Harrison. I can deal with them like doing the changing Mark. You have to use Billy. That's the one that I am like, no, do not de-age her. Don't do the carry de-aging. Bring in Billy to do it. To me, that's the right and respectful thing to do.
I understand that I absolutely understand your take on that. I'm not as. I think it'd be almost strange if they did two and not the other one. It's almost like you got to do all three, or you got to be 3 of 3. You got to either do it one way or do it the other. I've always been one of the things that if Billy Lord or the family have approved it, only like it's really, in terms of, you're talking about more general AI. I'm scared of AI being used or beyond what people would want to have happen. But in this particular case, we want to take case by case basis. I know not that I know Carrie Fisher personally, but how I've seen her over the years, she loved the Leia character. She always wanted it to continue, and I kind of feel like if the family's on board and Billy's on board, and Billy maybe is the stand-in that they use, like they have stand-in for Luke, they use her as being on scene while they de-age Carrie Fisher. I feel like Carrie would be okay with it, so I'd kind of be okay with it. I think it's kind of like a case-by-case basis. If you have no idea how they feel, then it's one thing. But I think
this thing, like we don't know the family, so I'm like,
right.
They could very well say go for it, but
Lucasfilm like knows Carrie as well, though. It's not like the studio just picked, not like a studio that never, like I never worked with James Dean. I'm going to take him in. And Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy have a relationship with Carrie Fisher as well. Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford have a relationship with Carrie as well. And if they are on board, the family's on, and if everybody gets on board with it, I'd be okay with it. I'd be okay with it. Out of the three, the one that would make the most sense of not appearing would be Han. Because Han's a rebel, he's a rogue, he can go do whatever he needs to do. He can be off, just not around. But if you're going to have the two, you might as well get the big three together. All right, really, let's go on here. A couple more comments they had from this. Dave was saying, growing up with the original film, Return of the Jedi was the end. But then you're always like, well, what happens next? When Episode 7 was set so many years later, when I was a kid, I never would have thought it would have been that much later. But it made sense. It created an opening where you go, wow, so a lot of things we knew before are probably in there. How do we excavate that? That's from Dave as well. See, that comment right there led me to believe more and more that three are going to be involved, and that not even just the three, like the original trilogy people. We're going to see more. Like everybody says, it's a culmination of the Mandoverse. I think this is also a continuation from Return of the Jedi. Like, so it's a little bit of both, kind of piecing it together, I kind of feel like.
Yeah, and I feel like, to go off on a little bit of a tangent on another news topic that shouldn't have been a news topic, I feel like it kind of lends itself to what Sam Witwer was saying about The Last Jedi, of we grew up with a certain image of Luke, and his main, not gripe, but his main criticism of The Last Jedi was seeing Luke become a completely different version to the Luke that he grew up with. And I completely, that was me. When he said that, I was like, yeah, I get that, because we didn't see the transition, how Luke got to that point.
Right.
Something could happen in this movie that makes Luke go, you know what? Done being the hero. I'm out of here.
I've always, I greatly respect Sam Witwer, and we never really discussed The Last Jedi. Eventually, I think we're saving it to the point where we're actually going to go back and go through all the films at some point. We're going to need we need time to we have extra time that's not covered.
We'll just add the Scoundrels episodes and then finish the
exactly. That's what we should do in a way. I have to go back and revisit some of those. But I've always been a fan of The Last Jedi. I'm not like it's funny, like it seems like it's like a love or hate thing, and I've always been kind of like more in the middle than everybody else is. I love a lot of The Last Jedi. I have some issues with it. Luke was never an issue for me. But I understand why it is for some people, and I think it's perfectly fine. What I don't like is the weaponization of either side. They dismiss either side. I'm kind of like, you know what? It's a point of view. It's how you were presented it when you were younger. It's how you get presented to it now. Sometimes it might make sense to you, it might not make sense to others, and that's okay. It's perfectly understandable. But yeah, I agree. I agree that that's an interesting take. Obviously, we know a little bit about Luke and his Jedi Temple from like the Rise of Kylo Ren, and from the flashbacks we did get. But I feel like we have to almost get a bigger, because this feels like, again, a big piece. This is what Dave is saying. This is the big piece between Episode 6 and 7, or at least a very big piece. Thrawn is our big villain at this point, so we kind of have to get. We have the Mandoverse side of people. That's the stories they've been developing, but you have to see what happened after Return of the Jedi for all these characters and everything else. And finding it real estate for all of them is going to be tough. I'm not going to lie. And that's what some people are going to, I will shoot it out now and say some people may get disappointed, because a lot of these big movies like that, they have lesser screen time for some people than they might like. And I think you got to get prepared for that. This is a big movie, chock full of characters. It's not going to be a little solo piece of adventuring. Real quick for the rest of the John had some quotes as well. John said, as we are getting deeper and deeper into this, you start to have to really map things out and figure out what the story is and have those characters fulfill what their growth cycle is, what their mythic hero's journey is. That's always been Lucas's base. He's a student of Joseph Campbell. How does it fit into the narrative that has the hero's journey? And so, as we have more and more characters line up, you have to figure out those characters, how those characters are arcing, and if it feels ultimately like a Star Wars story. That's a brilliant quote from John. I think that just shows how much insight he has into Star Wars. He has an idea of what he wants to do, and he wants to figure out how it works. And importantly, does it feel like a Star Wars story? And that's the most important thing overall. Because any bigger than one character, does this feel Star Wars?
Well, John's very much a student of filmmaking, and Dave is obviously the heir apparent to George. So you have someone with the breadth of knowledge of filmmaking and telling a story that Favreau has, and then you have Dave come in and be like, okay, here's how you translate that into Star Wars. I think those two really are the perfect pair.
Yeah, I agree. I fully agree, because I mean, Dave is George's always been George's heir apparent for a while. Obviously, that's been kind of like common, the way it's been viewed. And Jon Favreau is a big Star Wars fan and is a great storyteller. He knows what he's doing, so it's definitely a perfect pairing. The last thing I want to mention is there was a Lucasfilm synopsis from Celebration. I don't think I ever actually read it until this article. I don't know how I missed it, or maybe I didn't read it and just forgot about it. But it adds to this conversation. I think it was expanding upon Star Wars storytelling in the present. Dave Filoni will orchestrate the escalating war between the Imperial Remnant and the fledgling New Republic. Alongside producer Jon Favreau, they will bring together many of the threads of the Star Wars original series in a cinematic event. Now, I can't question who wrote this, but it says many of the threads of the Star Wars original series. Does it mean the Star Wars original series, like the Disney Plus series, or does it mean like the original trilogy? Kind of thing. Like,
I think when it says original series, I think it probably means, because like Ahsoka's billed as an original series.
I agree. I do think it's meant
as an original series.
I do believe it's meant to be Disney Plus series, and that could be the case. But it's an interesting way to go about it. I wonder if it meant both in a way, kind of thing. So I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how it goes. But, all right, anything left to say about any of those comments, or should we?
Nah, just the same thing I always say: hurry up and make the fucking movie.
Fair enough.
I want to see it. Stop talking about it. I want to see it. Put it on my screen.
Speaking of hurrying up and fucking making the movie, Deadline says that Taika Waititi intends to shoot his Star Wars movie next year. Now, Deadline is a very reputable source. And the one line in the article, because it was an article about Taika Waititi's plans and things like that, there's only one line in it that people are gravitating towards. So could it be a mistake? Could it be a misinterpretation? I don't know. But the line read, as for Star Wars, insiders say he is still excited about the project and committed to directing that next year. Now, before we have comments, I want to break this down. Let's break this down. Let's have all of our pieces in play before we make our hopefully responsible speculation, as we were. Waititi's his last project was Thor: Love and Thunder, which is definitely divisive at best. I enjoyed it, but a lot of people had problems with it. He has a movie called Next Goal Wins, which bows in September. And that's been
I can't wait to watch that. That looks so good.
It does look very good. And that's supposed to be in September.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, prior to the release of Thor: Love and Thunder, he had signed on to a lot of different projects. And he had said he'd hoped his next film after that would be Star Wars, even though Kathleen Kennedy had already suggested that the 2025 film seems to now be The Charming Obey Chinoy, starring Daisy Ridley. Now, Justin Kroll, the guy who wrote this article, recently speculated that Waititi was supposed to be directing Akira next, and even said that the studio would be the script would be triggered to the studio soon. So we also have there's a lot of different balls up in the air. Let's put it that way. Now, you put it into the other concept of what Kathleen Kennedy recently said. They did not announce anything in Celebration, obviously, but there was someone asked a pointed question about it. And she said Waititi was writing the script by himself, as he doesn't like to have others involved in the creative process. Specifically, Taika was still working away. He doesn't want to bring others into that process, and I don't blame him. He has a very unique voice, but we're going to make that one day. Now, taking it back, originally, when we originally heard about Taika Waititi, it said that Taika Waititi was going to be co-writing the film with Christy Wilson Cairns from 1917. And Christy Wilson Cairns asked about this a little bit before, and she said, "I cannot tell you anything. I'm so sorry. I don't know much. I'm working away in a bunch of projects, and I find out what I find out. And if I tell anyone, they'll go into my house and kill me, and maybe my dog as well, which I love my dog. He's got to live, of course." This is great speculation, by the way. A lot of this is from Star Wars News now. I just want to bring it up, these pieces, so we can have a discussion. So all we know, really, what he started maybe working with Christy Wilson Cairns. I think she's left since then. If Kathleen Kennedy is to be believed that he's writing it by himself. Taika Waititi is writing the film, and it appears if he wants to do it next, it's got to be pretty close to being done. Lucasfilm hasn't committed to any release dates for any of the films he announced. They announced the Mangold one, the Filoni one, and the Janoi one, but no dates have been officially announced. So anything could happen. Nothing's set in stone. You could be heading for 2025 and going, "This is what I want. I want the Daisy Ridley movie in there now," but that's not set in stone, so it doesn't have to be that one. Now, here is the important part. The important part to me that this article mentioned and that I thought about myself. We have a very big thing going on in Hollywood right now. That Writers Guild of America striking. Now that obviously has a lot to do with obviously we can't write anything anymore, no script screen development. There's always this gray area because I don't know. I don't work in the business, so I don't know exactly how this works. Once you get on scene and you're filming, you can film, but that means no writer can be on set and no rewriting can happen. What does that mean as far as ad libs go? More importantly, what does that mean, especially in this current situation? What does that mean about directors who are writers, like Filoni, like Waititi? Can he not write anything on his own? But isn't that what directors do? Can he put on his director's hat and go, "I want to change this scene now"? And I'm gonna. I don't know. I don't know what the right or wrong is on that. But if he has been working on the script for a while, the other piece of news that makes me interested or intrigued about this possibility is we know that Lindelof had written the first pitch or the first draft or whatever it was for the Shinoy film, the Daisy Ridley film. We know that he left. They got Stephen Knight on to do possibly a page one rewrite or maybe at least a redevelopment of it. That was supposed to have been finished by now, before the strike, but I wasn't sure if it was going to make it. Did they not make it?
I looked this up. He's not part of the WGA.
Stephen Knight is not?
No.
However, will he stand in solidarity?
But probably. But also, one thing that if they ask Lindelof to leave, Stephen Knight could turn in a thing and be like, "Okay, this is cool. Thank you. We no longer require your services. Try to bring in the next writer. Oh wait, we can't because they're on strike." From my understanding, it's anyone who's a writer. They're not working. So they're not on set. They're not nada. They're on the picket lines. They're director writers. As far, yeah, I guess. I mean, what's Filoni going to do? Say, "No, I'm not going to work on Ahsoka."
Actually, according to, I heard there's a comment that the Directors Guild, they have to report and work on films until their contract is up, which, by the way, is coming up end of June. So hopefully this isn't like a case where everybody's going to start striking, because that would be god awful. Hopefully the studios wake up and give these hardworking creatives their due.
I hope so, but part of me is also like, hey, if you got to do it, go do it.
No. Oh no, let me make.
I know you're not. I'm just making our stance clear of
pro strike.
My motto, and I even have it tattooed on me, is "Fuck you, pay me."
Yeah, I know. They deserve far more, and the studios have to wake up from their profits. They are the lifeblood. The writers are the lifeblood, and also without writers, without actors, without directors, you have nothing. So make it fair for them and make it work. So I'm all pro strike. That being said, so I'm just throwing the potential out there. Let's say that the script wasn't finished. Taika Waititi has a finished script. Is Kathleen Kennedy, if he does, This is speculation. If he does, so I'm trying to make the pieces fit to see how this will work out. Because at that point, Kathleen Kennedy go, all right, you know what? This basically the script is not finished. We're not quite ready for it. I don't want to shoot it until it's a finished script. This one's ready to go. Let's bring Taika Waititi on. But I'll even douse some water on my own and saying he did say next year. So who knows necessarily?
I think they will keep it as an ace in the hole just in case.
Mm-hmm.
But if they were going to start on it next year, Taika would have been at Celebration. If they were going to start shooting it next,
it could be a recent thing.
Maybe, but if he's been working on it for this long, and the bang that they wanted to make at Celebration, Mangold's cool and everything. Charmin, I'm sure she's going to do great. But the bang that they would have made if Taika had walked out on stage and said, surprise, it's happening. I don't know when it's coming out. They could have kept the release date. They could have kept the title, kept it all stum. They could have just said, oh, yeah, Taika's working on this movie. And here's Taika to tell you a little bit about the movie that he's making. I think it's a movie they're going to keep up their sleeve just in case things go awry. But I do not see it happening next year. Maybe they bring him out in Celebration 2025 in Japan. Obviously, it's a lot closer to where he lives in New Zealand. So that's probably, if they are going to announce it, they'll be like, hey, we've been working with Taika. Here's Taika in Tokyo. Announce your movie here.
2 more points I'll make, and then we'll move on. Potentially, it could be that Kathleen Kennedy has felt a little snake bit about announcing things and things not coming to play. If she doesn't feel, if Taika Waititi has so much going on, and he has a lot of films he's juggling, maybe she didn't want to make the Celebration announcement because she wasn't 100% sure that was going to happen at that time yet. And she didn't want to just drop it and go, and then have him drop it a couple years later. Maybe she wants to have a little more down the line before she makes any kind of Celebration type announcement. Just saying that. And there's always the potential, maybe Taika will shoot it at the same time as Charmin and Chinoy, and maybe they'll slide it into a 2026 slot. Kind of thing. If they have the 2025, and if I'm ready to go 2026, maybe. I mean, I don't know. It just there's a lot of potential that this could still be happening. It could. Yeah, it could. It absolutely could be a lot of money, but they want to get started back on the big screen. Okay, let's do it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know either way. And this could all be this is all a one-line in an article, and Star Wars fans are going to be dissecting it like we are to say what is happening here. What is happening?
I feel like it's one that they're going to keep in their back pocket, and maybe they do film it next year. They just don't announce it until Japan, and they're like, okay, we were going to put it out then, but we put out the Charmin and Chinoy movie that came out fine, but we've had this prepped and ready to go. We're going to just drop it.
I don't know. A lot of potential there, but the strike also throws out interesting things into the mix as well. And I wanted to bring that up today, so I'm just making my comments on it. It does lead into our next story. We've got a quick story here. Tony Gilroy said the script for Andor season 2 finale was completed prior to the strike because they are still filming at this point. Again, this comes into play with he's the writer and he's the showrunner. Is the showrunner not allowed on set either? I don't know. But I kind of feel like the quote was 2 days ago was when he was asked if it was finished. He said 2 days ago, and not because of the strike, because our thing rhymed with the strike. I finished the last script of the 24. We started 3.5 years ago. It'll be 5 years by the time we're done to finish. I kind of feel like he actually already had the whole thing finished for a while, and then he might have had a last run of it recently to kind of make sure it was done before the strike in a way. I worry a little bit that they can't do anything because they're still filming. As far as another guys still film. So until that, so they can't change anything on set now. So that does worry me a little bit.
I feel like he's the kind of, the thing about Tony Gilroy, he's probably the kind of guy that's just like, I'm the fucking showrunner. I wrote this. I'm just going to, if I want to change something on the fly, I'm going to change it.
Right. Again, I just don't know those rules. Those rules are I don't know what the rules are. I don't know how you enforce the rules in situations like that. Like, is there a WGA representative who goes to the sets and go, "Oh no, you can't change that word for word.
Do we know any writers that we could bring on?
I don't know. Do we?
I
I don't
don't.
know. Anybody in the comments wants to let us know. Maybe they know more than I do. I fully plead ignorance. I don't want to say anything like that's out of line or out of order. So I'm saying that right out the debate. This is just our speculation based on what little we know about that about that situation. But either way, I'm glad the scripts were finished. I'm glad that at least it's a finished script. As far as not being able to change things, I don't know. I'll have to see how it goes. I know I read a great article about how the strike really screwed with Quantum of Solace, the second Bond movie with the Daniel Craig situation, and
That's what screwed with that movie.
Yes, that's absolutely screwed with that movie. They had nobody. They couldn't have a writer on set. They couldn't change scenes. And then after the strike was over, they brought a writer on to try to kind of salvage what they had done, and it was a little too late to do it. And that's yeah. So, all right. One last bit of news. Interesting piece of news. Esquire had an interview with Damon Lindelof. He got to answer questions that was asked on an iPad. He was specifically asked about Star Wars. He said the question was something to the effect of he was in talks to join the Star Wars universe, and would he ever do so again? His answer, I would suggest watching the video, because I think the video gives it a little more context. He actually is laughing it off a little bit. So it doesn't seem like the words seem a little dire, but the way he delivers it made it seem a little different. His words, I was in more than talks to join the Star Wars universe. I joined the Star Wars universe and was asked to leave. He said there would be a new. Previously, he had told the Variety that his act script was going to be a true labor of love, and there would still be a new film, but not with him. But he continued on. He said, "Will I get back in line outside the club and try to get back in again?" Absolutely. So originally, he goes, "The first movie is one of the greatest films he ever saw, and if at first you don't succeed, you try and try again, or again try," as Yoda would say. This sounds to me interesting. Like, I think people are going to take a lot of umph with him being asked to leave, because before it was kind of speculated that he was unhappy with how things are going, and he had left because his movie wasn't being made. We even speculated on that, given what we knew at the time. This makes it more feel like a Lucasfilm thing. Although, that being said, it could still toe the line with what we had speculated in terms of Lucasfilm deciding that they wanted to bring back Daisy Ridley. Because the other part of this whole bit, we should also mention, that the rumors are going around, and we don't know how true they are, is that Lindelof's movie featured an elderly Rey, an older Rey, and he was going to have Helen Mirren play an older Rey. So maybe that was the pitch. Lucasfilm said, nay, we want young Daisy Ridley to play Rey, so we're going to ask you to leave, and because Lindelof didn't want to do that movie. He wanted Lindelof to go away. And then, but it wasn't obviously such a bad blood. Even if he was asked to go away, there's no bad blood there. He's like, yeah, I'll try to do it again. Absolutely. He's like, I got in. I want to get it again. I love it. So obviously, there's no real bad blood. And that's the important thing here. Things like this happen all the time. Disagreements happen. First, talk about that, and then we'll get into his supposed pitch. We'll talk about the idea of him being asked to leave. What do you think about that?
I think he was asked to leave. I just think he's having fun with it. He's having fun with whoever this person is interviewing him. Right. And he's just like, oh yeah, I joined, and then I was promptly asked to leave. Like, what he means by asked to leave was like, he finished his script, turned it in, wasn't happy with the direction, with the, edits that Lucasfilm wanted to make. And they said, okay, well, it's probably best that we go our separate ways for now.
And
that's probably it.
The future.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's exactly the way I'm looking at it as well. This is not a bad thing at all necessarily. Yeah. Now let's get into that pitch. We have the pitch. Now, again, the pitch is completely separate from this article. The pitch was a rumor from speculation from sources that I don't hold source to. We have no idea if this is the case. The pitch being the elderly Rey was going to be possibly with Yahya Abdul-Mateen, like two students. My initial thought was no, at least not yet. Give me Helen Mirren in a Star Wars film? Absolutely. Give me Helen Mirren. Jocasta New? Absolutely. That would fucking I would love that. But I'm gonna admit I listened to Ken and Joseph on
That's where I got the idea from.
yeah, exactly. Ken, the Force Center podcast, we love them here. I listened to them, and I have to agree with them is with what they said. You have Daisy Ridley now. If you're going to have a Ray movie, why would you skip forward to have an older Ray when you can make a movie about Ray right now while Daisy Ridley is in her prime? We never got that for Luke Skywalker. We had to wait until Mark Hamill's older, and then we got older Luke. We never got Luke in his prime. That's one of the key things. We don't want to do that again. Don't make that same mistake twice.
That's exactly the point I was going to make. You're just inviting more of that same Last Jedi discussion of that's not my Luke. We're going to have a bunch of, at the time, probably going to be 18 to 20-year-olds saying hashtag not my Ray.
Right. Absolutely. And again, I will crib this from Force Center. I apologize if I'm plagiarizing Air Force Center, but I do. Joseph, I remember Joseph brought up a great point that this is the first time we get to see this kind of angle outside of Hera as kind of in Rebels. We get to see a person who is like in their 30s, in their peak, still living life, still has a lot to give, but also still kind of trying to mentor and try to like juggle that kind of thing. She's not a character like an old Obi-Wan who's on the twilight of his life, where his last things I got to train Luke and have him beat Vader. This is someone who's right there in the heart of the thing, potentially being a mom-ish kind of character, but still having a lot to live for herself. And that's a very interesting thing to do in the Star Wars universe. We haven't really seen that to this degree, if that's the case. So yeah, I agree entirely that if Damon Lindelof wanted the elderly Ray and couldn't budge from that, go back out of the club, Damon, come back and try again. Well, maybe you know what? Maybe we'll use your pitch in a few years. Maybe after 10 years down the road, we'll keep this pitch up, and then Helen Mirren won't be there. Probably at that point would be the right time to play it, but we can still revisit the opportunity at that point.
It's probably going to be a case of he goes out back into the line outside the club, and it's 2 chicks out, 1 dude in, 2 chicks out, 1 dude in.
Yeah, I think he has the fast pass now. That's what I think, though. Getting in there the first time, and considering I really, really, truly don't think it really doesn't sound like there's any bad blood there at all.
He's got the $20 bill ready to bribe the bouncer to come back.
Exactly. So, all right, that's what we're going to do with the news bits. Let's go on to the rest of the show today, where we're going to take a look at Visions Season 1. We wanted to do a few things. We're going to do like a basic overview. How we're going to do it, we're going to rank the episodes on our enjoyment, and therefore we'll give probably a little brief talking about the episodes as we rank them. We're talking about what characters we want to bring into canon, and maybe which stories we would like to see continue. At the end, we'll wrap up with any favorite scenes that we want to mention or anything like that. We'll do before we leave and pitch for tomorrow, Season 2. But let's get right into it there. We had 9 episodes. Let's go from 9 to 1. Maddie, I'm going to let you lead off because you told me beforehand that you had one that on your second viewing did not improve for you. And I'm very curious as to what that is. We have no idea what our views are on this. We haven't really talked about Visions to each other very much outside of kind of some surface level discussion.
I don't think we ever have. I don't think you and me have ever discussed Visions.
Very surface level stuff, if anything. I've never gone deep dive into any of it, so I'm kind of curious. Give me your number 9 there, Matty.
It's Toby 1. There's certain parts of Star Wars, Young Jedi Adventures, Resistance, this, where I just can't click. Whereas I feel like a younger me or my niece and nephews maybe could. I felt like this was the one where it was like, okay, this is almost too kiddie for my tastes. Okay. But that's possibly just because, again, my exposure to anime is like a very set, like a very specific types of anime that I am used to, which is why my one's higher up the rankings. When you listen to me talk about the ones that I watched when I was younger, like as we get on, it's gonna be like anyone listening to be like, oh yeah, of course, like you can tell he loves those ones,
right?
But yeah, it just didn't sit with me.
Okay, and what did you give it out of 11? Since we always turn up to 11 here on PLD projects,
I'm gonna give it 5. I don't want to trash it. wasn't that I didn't like it. I was just like, yeah, out of all of them, I'm not gonna go back to this one.
Okay, that's fair. It's actually this is my least favorite as well. This is the one I gave. I will say right off the top, I give it a 6. I did enjoy it more this time around. One of my major problems is I wasn't a big fan of the art design of this one. It is a little more childish feeling. Actually reminds me of some of the anime my son made me watch. I should say made me watch, but he introduced me to Made in Abyss. The art style felt similar to that, and that's one of my least favorite art styles I've seen so far. It does feel very childish. Some people love this art design, and I'm great. I'm glad I connected for you. It didn't really connect for me. It kind of made it a little lesser for me. That being said, I've never had some problems with the idea. I'm like, I hate this idea of a droid being a Jedi. The whole thing kind of threw me off a little bit. But it didn't throw me off as much this time around because I kind of almost like the idea that a droid was so. It was kind of the thing that anybody can be a hero. It's that concept that anybody can be a hero. Even a droid could be a Jedi, and even if he's not a Jedi as we would see it, he doesn't touch the Force per se. He still tries to emulate a Jedi. So something about that story actually kind of intrigues me. Someone who maybe can't touch the Force but wants to still be a Jedi in every other way. Because what is a Jedi? Jedi is always defined in our universe really as someone who touches the Force, has lightsaber, and anything else. This guy doesn't this is a droid, doesn't use the Force, and yet he does everything else a Jedi is supposed to do, being a heroic defender, bringing life back to the planet. So there's parts of it that I really did end up really enjoying. That it brought up a lot to me. Will I watch it again? I probably wouldn't choose to watch unless I decided to do a complete Visions rewatch, which might happen at some point. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, but compared to the other ones, this is definitely my least favorite. And I gotta be honest with you, the team behind it, Science Saru, I don't know what else they've done. Like I'm not big. I have no idea who any of these anime companies are. So I'm not an anime person at my heart. I was not a big fan of their work in general, but we'll get on to that soon with the other one. So that's mine as well. I give it a 6. So we are both at there. What is your next one? What is your number 8?
Akakiri.
The other Science Saru one.
Yeah. This to me was lazy. This was lazy storytelling. This was Anakin's story.
Okay.
But with the caveat that Padme lives at the end. To me, it was exactly the same. It was a different stylistic take on a story we already know. And with Visions, that's just not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for different stories that take me completely out of that. Like, I know the story of Anakin Skywalker. I know the hero's journey. I'm very well aware of what happens. This to me was just copy and paste, but done in anime, and the girl lives at the end.
Interesting point. Again, Science Saru. I will give you a little spoiler here. I will talk about it now. I put this not at number 8, but at number 7. So okay. Not too far behind. What did you rank this one, by the way? What was your ranking out of 11?
I'm gonna give it a 6 because I did like the animation style a lot more than Toby 1. But as far as the storytelling goes, I just thought it was pure laziness.
Okay, that's fair. I will say again, like I said, I will give it a 7.5. I understand where you're coming from. There's a fine line between copying or repeating and echoing and kind of honoring in a way, because Star Wars is a lot of echoing. That's what they do. I was like George Lucas's famous quote, it echoes, it rhymes, it echoes, all that stuff. Then I can see where you thought this was lazy, though. The two comedic sidekicks were like a different take on 3PO and R2. Obviously, different characters, but filled a similar function to a degree. I did like the art style for the most part, except for the I wasn't a big fan of the Sith sister at the end there. The dark side sister was not that great. I did like what happened between the two. I liked like the Anakin-ish thing towards the end, but again, I can see why you make a point that it's copying. I felt like it was a lot more Star Warsian than Toby 1 was, to a degree. But overall, it's definitely not my favorite as well. But again, 7.5 out of 11 to me is not that bad, so I enjoyed it enough. So, all right, let's move on then to my number 8. Obviously, we'll skip my 7. My number 8. This is where I actually put, and a hard time doing this. I did The Village Bride.
Oh, okay.
I give this a 7. And here's the problem I have. The ending might be some of my favorite work in Visions overall.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole beginning of it, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was the art or if it was the introduction of the characters, I got taken completely out of this story. Star Wars, especially Star Wars feel-wise, just didn't feel like Star Wars to me at all. I was struggling to find some of the concepts in there. I got there. Something about it just felt like a different, it just didn't feel Star Wars enough to me. I wish I had some examples in my head that I could say what about it was, but I couldn't point out particularly anything. I found myself wandering. My eyes were wandering. I kind of just wasn't feeling into it, even the second time through. However, that being said, the reason why I gave this a 7 and above Toby 1, for example, and I almost put it at 7.5, almost above Akakiri, was because that ending where they're at the temple, or the temple, at the meeting point with the ship and the raiders, that was fucking badass. And when she reveals herself as the Jedi, that was badass shit. And I loved it. And that's why the beginning part would have been worse. It would have been the least for me. It would have been like a 5 for me. But that rest of it took it up to it like a 9. So therefore I had averaged out to a 7. I love F. I love that character. I think she's a wonderful character. I just kind of want to get her away from this planet. I also kind of want to see the Raiders somewhere else too. The Raiders kind of fun, Raider kind of guys. So so that's where I am for number 8. Since you gave your number 8 now, let's go back to you for your number 7, because I'll let you talk about Village Bride when you get there. Unless you want to talk about Village Bride now.
No, we'll go when I get there, I guess. Okay. My number 7 was La Pinocho.
Okay.
I like the art style. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like, oh wow, that's cool. I love the story of a family divided. The Empire and this is what's crazy, because like these are stories not set in canon, but yet they still use Star Destroyers and mention the Empire. And I love the story of a family divided, one side being Imperial, the other not. It's kind of like a Montague and Capulet kind of situation.
Okay.
But in the same family, divided. And I really enjoyed that. That was a real interesting take, especially when you think of like the current geopolitical climate of like someone in one family may lean one way, someone in the same family may lean the other way. And I thought that was really cool to be shown in this, because it makes me want to know a story. It makes me want to see a story of like maybe a brother or a sister goes off to join the rebellion and the other one goes off and joins the Empire, and then they meet. We've obviously had that, like 2 lovers on either side. What about 2 siblings? What about a family divided by the war? I thought that was a really, really interesting story to tell.
It's funny. All right, I'm going to say it now. I'm going to might as well get. This is actually my number 6. This is the one right above Akira.
Okay.
Last much was here for me. This is a very petty thing.
Go for it.
I can't. I have to admit that I actually almost hate saying it, because I feel like it makes me lesser as a content creator and as a reviewer. I loved everything you said about it. For whatever reason, I had a hard time getting past the design of Lop.
Yeah, that's a very.
It reminded me a little bit of a Jackson, the green.
Oh,
bunny.
that's a good shout. I didn't think of that. Now I like it even more.
Like, I understand why I understand why people like that, and I actually like Jackson too for what it was, but I like Jackson to kind of in like an ironic way. Not a Star Wars. It just doesn't feel like a Star Wars.
It's not a Jackson story
design for me. Like, it's not a Jackson story exactly. That's the kind of thing. in the proper context, it might have worked, but in this series, I kept looking and I kept getting taken out by her. If she had been designed a little different, I mean, I guess it's kind of hypocritical because I mean, we have a dog in Chewbacca, we have a teddy bears in the Ewoks, and I have a hard time with this like cat-like creature. I don't know what it was. I just really didn't like her design at all.
No, I get it. It's very much an anime like weeb kind of a thing to have a character like that. And I must admit, like characters like that in anime, they don't stick with me either.
Yeah, it just bothered me throughout it. Every time I try to take something serious, I was like, story itself, I liked quite a bit. I mean, I gave it overall, I gave it an 8. I actually really did enjoy it. Just that was the drawback for me. Everything else, I loved the whole story about the lightsaber being passed down generation to generation from the fallen or from the Jedi who had died there. I love the father's character, even though he was a stubborn pain in the ass. Like every once in a while, to knock on his face, like I know why you're doing what you're doing, but you seem to be under this like delusion that like that's going to work out because she's your daughter. Like I felt like hello. I kind of felt like it just made no sense. Like not make no sense to me, but kind of like I wanted to knock him upside the head for being so delusional in a way. Yeah. But that's true. Characters are like that, so I can't really knock that as well. I did want to smack Ocho around a little bit. Smack her. She was like kind of a pain in the ass kind of character. Like, how can you not see what the Empire is doing at the same time? But I guess that leads into great tension, having the two back and forth like that. Having Lop in the middle actually made that the much better story than it would have been, because having the two be like that is would be kind of almost a cliche. I kind of feel like it wouldn't have been as good as it was without having that middle character of Lop who just wants. I just want my family together. I don't care about the Empire. I don't care about this. You're my sister. I want my family together. But yeah, she does what she has to do at the end as well. So I like the story. I like the characters, generally speaking. Just give me, if you could just take Lop out, redesign her, make her a Twi'lek, make her a unusual Star Wars species or something like that, I could probably get much more on board with it. And it's weird because I always like new characters and new creatures, new species, new world. I love seeing that in Star Wars. For some reason, that design just didn't work for me. That's all.
Yeah, it's very much an anime design.
I'm sorry. So, what did you give Lapinacho?
I gave it a 7.
Okay, cool. All right. So, what do you got for number 6 then?
Number 6. Now we get into the Village Bride.
Oh, okay.
Like you, I felt kind of like, where are we going with this?
Mm-hmm.
With the story?
Mm-hmm.
But then this is where I start getting into the Kurosawa of it.
Okay.
This is where the Kurosawa influence starts to seep into these shorts, because what is his style? It's that long build. Like he really envelops the characters and like builds on their strengths and like emphasizes their weaknesses and turns them into strengths. And then you get the big action set piece at the end. And like you said, with the big scene at the end with the raiders at the ship and everything, awesome. And that's when, yeah, like I said, I was like, okay, now we're getting to the Kurosawa influence. This is when I'm starting to relate more to this. And like you said, I feel like, yeah, I think they could have hurried it up a little bit more, but yeah, I like this one a lot.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, if somebody told me the Village Bride was their favorite, I would completely understand just by the ending alone. I do agree with the Kurosawa vibe in there at that point. But I do overall like it. So what did you give it as out of a 1 to 11?
I gave it 7.5.
Okay. All right. Let's move up then. We're in our top 5 now. Give me your number 5.
Did you do your number 6?
I did my number 6 with Lapinacho. That's why I segued into doing my number 6, because that was my number 6.
Okay.
Your number 7, my number 6. So
my number 5 was The Ninth Jedi.
Oh, okay.
I liked parts of it. The lightsaber changing colors with whoever holds it. I really like that. I can't remember, what was the name of the main guy that called them all together?
Juro,
yes. I thought his mech suit and everything, him popping out, I thought that was really cool. I kind of saw the bait and switch coming with the Sith. And I feel like this is a good template to use for the Rey story, the Rey movie. I feel like this is a good first stepping stone that they could use of the Jedi are gone. I love that the kyber crystals are rare and that lightsabers are a weapon of legend. They are not around anymore. And that if you are found to be making one or building one or in possession of one, that is deemed illegal. It's deemed immoral. I feel that's a really good. Main thing I took away from this was this could be a really good stepping stone for the Charmin Obey Chinoy movie.
Okay, what do you give it out of a score of 11?
I give it 8.
An 8. Okay.
The
I'm gonna
action
save.
sequences were awesome too.
Okay, I'm gonna save mine. I'm gonna save my talk on the Ninth Jedi for a little bit here. I do want to point out, by the way, Juro was voiced by Andrew Kishino. Do you know who that is?
No, go on.
Andrew Kishino voices Saw Gerrera in Clone Wars and Bad Batch.
Oh,
and is
okay.
also married to Vanessa Marshall, who plays Hera, of course. So,
yeah.
Anyways,
Okay.
that little kind of cool fact there, at least the English version of it. I kind of like noticing there's a lot of cool characters that I didn't realize who was voiced them. Like, for example, Ethan was voiced by Hero's own Masaoka.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Okay,
Hiro Nakamura himself.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. I am quite a snob when it comes to anime. I do listen to the Japanese language and have the subtitles.
Gotcha.
That's just, I'm so used to watching anime and like hearing it in Japanese and having the subtitles.
I'm outing myself as a true non-anime fan. I listen to dub first.
Whether the dub, yeah.
Because I have to. I kind of feel like I
hey, no shame in that.
I love subtitles too. I do love subtitles, but like at least the first time through, I might go back and watch it Japanese because I have watched a bunch of different ones in Japanese as well. After I watched the dub kind of thing to kind of get the real feel for it. But either way, interesting enough. Yeah, so I will talk about mine later at that point. I'm going to go to my number 5. I'm sorry, what did you give that again? You give it a...
I give it an 8.
An 8, okay. My number 5, I gave a 9. I'm putting The Elder here.
Now we're talking.
I gave The Elder a 9. I really did enjoy it. I would say like 4 episodes higher. That's okay. This felt probably the most like typical Star Wars to me. In a lot of ways, I know you said that about Akakiri, and I get what you mean by that. But this one, I kind of felt like this could have been Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan as a duo, or Obi-Wan and Anakin kind of go into the planet. You meet some natives in there. There's some monsters in there. There's a Sith Lord. There's a Sith character in there. The Sith character is probably the most interesting part of it for me. I want to know more about him. He's a mysterious character. I almost want to see more. We'll talk about that later on, maybe, but where he came from. Did he left the Sith? What is he doing? But he's still kind of like this horrible monster. And I love the story that he faces the Padawan first before he has to face the Master. I love the idea that the Master is saying that if I had faced him in his prime, I would have gotten my ass kicked. Because I am in the I'm starting to fall in the twilight of my years. You don't talk about that as much. How as you get older, you might get more into the Force, as like Yoda does, but at the same time, you're not quite as physically able to do things in a way, especially if you're a human, not like a Yoda species. Yoda species can go forever and still be doing acrobats. I love the tired Jedi trope. I love the young, kind of verging on dark side if he's not careful. Very much loving the aggressive side, loving the battle, looking for adventure and excitement, as they kind of paraphrase that quote there. But not a bad kid. I like that too. He's not a bad kid. He just says he wants some adventure. He'll learn. Hopefully, he'll learn. But yeah, I did enjoy this one quite a bit. I think the only reason I kept it at number 5 is it almost felt too. Here I am. I was about to say 2 Star Wars in. So what do I want? Is it not Star Wars enough? Is it 2 Star Wars in? I want that right in the middle for this kind of project, right? but it felt a little comfortable for me. But overall, I really, like I said, I gave it a 9 out of 11, so I can't be saying too much badly about it. What do you have to say about the Elder? Or do you want to say the Elder? Or do you want to go into your?
Where did I have the Elder? I know I had it higher.
Okay.
Okay. I put the Elder 3, so
Okay.
let me get my 4 out of the way,
Okay.
and then I'll gush over the Elder. This is going to be a shock to a lot of people. My number 4 is Tatooine Rhapsody.
Before you say anything further, it is my number 4 as well.
Okay, cool.
I gave it a 9 as well. So to say it as I give the Elder. Talk to me about Tatooine Rhapsody.
I love that they are bringing pop punk into Star Wars. Star Waver could be, if they were a real band, I would probably go to one of their shows. This to me was the one where I was like, okay, forget all the Force and the Jedi and everything, and just like have fun and just enjoy it. And just from a purely this made me smile and this made me happy basis, I really enjoyed this film. At this short, obviously adding the pop punk band to it definitely helped. But there was also seeing like the pod race and Boba Fett and Jabba, like there was that familiarity to it, to me, and it made me think these guys you could bring this over. You could bring like Star Waver into canon, and like they're just playing in some, and they're playing in the cantina somewhere, just playing a bunch of kids playing a dingy cantina somewhere on Tatooine. Yeah, this was just fun for me. I talk a lot about it. Like fun is okay. Like it's all right to just enjoy things just because they're fun. So yeah, this was that for me, and I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Very nice. I gave it a 9. I'm right there with you. I just complained about not being Star Wars. Like this was the biggest swing of the entire series, I think, as far as being, because all 8 of the other episodes dealt with Jedi, Sith, the Force, duels, things like that. It was all, which I get, because if you're given one shot to make a 10, 20-minute story, I'm probably going to want to include a Jedi or Sith because that's Star Wars to me. They decided to not do that and go instead with a pop punk band singing for Jabba the Hutt. I love the balls. I love the aspect. I think what actually helps is by including those characters that we do know and love, gives it that anchor. We do get to see Boba Fett. We do get to see Jabba the Hutt. We get to see a bunch of characters even in the background. I mean, Figrin Dan was there. The bartender Wooer was there. Cave was there. There's a lot of people who are just there in the background, kind of like just
Tamora Morrison actually did some VO for it.
Yes, Tamora Morrison was there, and that's what drew me in. He was Boba Fett, obviously. The other characters, by the way, the other English voice cast, Joseph Gordon-Levitt played Jay. Bobby Moynihan played Geezer. A lot of cool stuff in there. But Mark Thompson, the great Star Wars book author, he did Lan and additional voices. I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was silly. Star Wars has these wonky, silly moments, and I think we should celebrate them. Is this the most serious one there? No, we're just going to emotionally affect me. No, they get to see these guys sing and rocking their hearts out in front of Jabba the Hutt and on Tatooine. It just brought warm feelings to my heart, as Yoda would say, and I'm all in. And I think it scores because it is different. It's like I always feel like they took it and you know what? Everybody's gonna make a Jedi Sith thing. Let's do something that's completely off the wall. Let's get something completely ballsy here. Let's just do it. And they succeed as far as I'm concerned. I love it. And my number 4 as well as number 9. But let's get into your number 3 then. Bring the Elder for me.
This was just fucking awesome. I love this. I love the character of the Elder. He reminds me of Aku from Samurai Jack. Like he's that weird, like zany, like 1 minute he's all cool and like calm, and then he just fucking explodes the next moment, and he's creepy as hell. Like he's that old traditional anime creepy old dude. Like you go back to Dragon Ball Z, you got Master Roshi, who I know is a good guy, but still he's a perv, he's creepy. You would look at the Elder and you would think, I feel uneasy with this guy. Like I don't like it.
Right.
And then you said you have the Master, like he takes on the Padawan first, deals with the Padawan. Like, okay, I feel like it's very much they took the Phantom Menace and flipped it. When Maul took out Qui-Gon first, and then Obi-Wan took him out.
Right.
I feel like this is much more of the story of the wise old warrior who maybe past his prime.
Right.
It's almost like the story, the Book of Five Rings, Miyamoto Musashi, the swordsman who never lost a duel, even when he got to his his twilight years and his elderly life. The stories go that he still never lost a duel ever.
Right.
And it kind of speaks to that. And I'm a big fan of that book. And yeah, I loved it. I loved The Elder. I thought it's so Kurosawa as well. I love it.
I love it. Yeah, no, I agree. I see. Like I said, I might have given it a little bit lower. What did you give it ranking wise? I'm sorry. What did you give it?
I can give it a 9.
9. Okay, fair enough. It's funny. I gave it a 9 also. I just had it a little bit down the ranks. It's kind of cool. All right, great. I did, like I said, I loved it as well. So I get where you're coming from. Okay, so then to my number 3. My number 3. This is where I placed the twins.
Okay.
Twins, and I gave it a 10. I gave it a 10. I did enjoy the twins. If I had any drawbacks to it, is that sometimes I don't even know if this is a drawback. But the art was definitely a swing. The art, I love the colors they used, the color choices they used, the patterns they used, the red skies, the blue skies here and there that went. The characters looked a little too pretty for me, if that makes sense. I don't know if that even makes sense. Like it kind of felt like it was almost too young. And kind of wanted to be a little bit more grizzled because they had used the dark side for so long. I kind of feel like it was almost like if they were born from the dark side, as they say, and they were using the dark side, so they'd have a little bit more of a sunken look at dirt. Or look at least the female, at least the twin sister, the girl should have done, because the guy maybe he saw a little bit more into it and went back to the light side. I don't know. Beyond that, though, twins are an important part of Star Wars. Twins have always been an important part of Star Wars, obviously. And the idea of having twins born into the dark side of the Force, that their whole life was meant to be the Sith, to be the Lords, that was fascinating to me. The fact that everything was in a dyad kind of thing, a situation where everything was like back and forth between the two. They felt what was going on. It had humor in it. When I remember the character's name, Tom. Actually, what's the boy's name there? Male one.
I can't.
It's like Kare
and
Am. I think is the girl's name. Under me is it Kare? Kare, yeah, Am and Kare.
I know. I remember Kare being the dude.
Where Kare is like sneaking through the Star Destroyer with his droid there. I love the by the way, the R duo, the obviously R2D2 and Cam had 3PO or Am had 3PO, whatever. I love the humor that goes on about all of a sudden they're sneaking through and they get caught by the stormtroopers. They have to fight his way through and everything else. He never lost his humor. It felt very like if Han Solo was a Jedi almost in a way. I loved that to it.
Even the way he was dressed was very much kind of like Han.
I feel like the twins took a lot from Star Wars, and like I said, this is where we said before, like sometimes there's copying, sometimes there's echoing, sometimes there's just honoring. It felt like it was honoring them to pick little pieces of my favorite bits of Star Wars and put them in there in a kind of a smorgasbord. And the power was great, the fight was great, the idea of the arrogance of Am as a Sith Lord, exactly what would happen. The I can't say Jedi, Kar's not Jedi, but the light side Jar and Kar now, who's just trying to save his sister. It's not about anything else. He wants to save his sister. It's a very, very young Jedi thing, a very Luke Skywalker thing, rushing to save his friends. The weird thing with the X-Wing and the hyperdrive, that thing was it only works in this kind of thing that wouldn't work in real Star Wars, obviously, but I kind of let it go because of where we are. This is where you can take those kind of swings and use them. Very great action, very Star Warsian at its core. And so I really did enjoy this one. That was my number 3. I gave it a 10. Yes. So it's up to you. You can talk about twins now. You only have two left, so the twins is
Well, that's
obviously one
good
of them.
because the twins is my number 2.
Oh, perfect timing. All right, perfect.
The twins to me was if you drop Dragon Ball Z right into Star Wars. You had the energy blast meeting in the middle, like the Kamehameha and whatever Frieza's technique was. I can't remember, but like there was so much of like the innocence of the innocence of Kare as the hero. Like I saw so much of Goku in him, of like he's the powerful hero at the end of the day, but like he never loses touch with his inner child, possibly because he was created by the Force. So like he's still very much in his infancy. Maybe like he had to grow up fast or something, but he also sees the good in his rival, in his villain, which in this case, the sister made me think of the rivalry of Goku and Vegeta. They are constantly at odds with each other, but it's because they are trying to better each other. They are trying to up each other and make each other better, but at the same time, there's that little bit of a friendly rivalry. I feel like, yeah, this was just, I gave me the warm and fuzzies of like being a kid, sitting at home, putting a VHS tape in, recording an episode of Dragon Ball Z, and then watching it after school. That's the feeling that I got from this, and I really enjoyed it. Again, it was fun, and like you said, the whole twin thing, the dyad of the Force, the rule of 2, Luke and Leia being twins, like, and yeah, I love this. This to me was a 10.5.
Love it. I love it. That's great to hear. I'm happy for you. 10.5. Okay, then we got my number 2. Then we're getting down to the nitty gritty here, and then we'll get into a little bit more of our other characters and what we want to continue, et cetera, et cetera. My number 2. I only have 2 left. This is where I place the duel.
Ouch. Okay, that's still
at 10.5. I got the duel here, and I know that obviously means you already know your number 1 is, because that's where we are here. I'll throw it out there. I love this episode quite a bit. The arc design was my favorite, because the art design was the biggest swing that succeeded for me as far as I'm concerned. Black and whiteness of it with the colored lightsabers, the occasional color highlights was a beautiful.
There were only 2 colors shown.
Only 2 colors. Yep. Red and blue, and it worked very well. I love the sabers that they had, the way he kept pulling it out. There was a lot of Kurosawa here. There was a lot of samurai stuff here. I love the idea of the Ronin as a former Sith who was wandering the universe, helping where he could, but not having a blue lightsaber still, or a green lightsaber. He still has that red lightsaber. He still has that blade. I love the Sith angle. I love the weapon choice, the whole umbrella thing that she had going on there. He took a lightsaber in there, threw it in there, and then to block a bunch of different laser shots. I love the fact that they used real Star Wars aliens. Trandoshans were there, Tuskens were there. It felt like a place. This felt like it happened sometime in Star Wars universe, even though it is kind of a definitely an alternate universe to a degree. I think this is one of my favorite ones. I give it 10.5, near perfect. I only liked one more, and that's what I'll talk about next. But that's where I am with the duel. This is your number 1, so why don't you go off on it, my friend?
I'm so glad that this is the one they chose to expand on with the books. I think they're doing a second Ronin one, but this was Yojimbo. This was Seven Samurai. This was just Kurosawa oozing off the screen, and it looks like a kind of Japanese, like a traditional Japanese painting, but like done with a little bit of stop motion here and there, and just I love the astromech unit with the straw hat.
Yes,
I thought he was great. I love that the Ronin isn't a Jedi, because the samurai were not perfect. They were not the good guys. Yes, obviously they protected their land, they protected their family, but they still killed.
Right.
And that is essentially what the Ronin is. He's like, look, I'm not perfect. I will protect you, but you're gonna have to pay me for it, and I'm gonna kill a lot of people doing it. So when he pulled the saber, and it was a red blade, and you even see the look on her face. She's like, oh shit, because he
Oh,
doesn't say he's a Sith.
right,
She just assumes that he's a Jedi.
right.
And she's like, oh, it's been a while since I've killed a Jedi. And then she swings and he pulls the sword out. And it's just like, which, by the way, lightsaber katana. Oh,
Oh yeah, give it to me. Give it to me.
and there was one moment I loved the end. I fucking love the end when he's underneath the waterfall and she's standing there. And they're like looking at each other. And she looks up. She pulls the log a little bit, so the water splits. Like that's something out of like a Japanese water painting. It was beautiful. And then she goes in, swipes at the statue. It's not him. He's there, guts her through, and then bows at the end because he's showing respect to his opponent. And that is such a samurai thing, because like the samurai, they would kill someone, but then they would bow. They would show respect to the person they just killed, because they'd be like, look, it was you or me.
Right.
And unfortunately, this time it was you. But
unfortunately for
thank you.
It was you. Yes.
And I was just like, as someone who grew up watching Kurosawa and studying samurai culture, I was just like, yup, this ticked every box for me.
I will agree with that. I also want to remember part of it. I just remembered I wanted to touch base on that. I really, really enjoyed it too. It had a little bit of everything. Sith, I mean, it had not, obviously he was not a Jedi, but a Force user. It was our protagonist, so to speak. We had the droid, I think you mentioned. And one of my favorite parts was the droid being just like broken in the beginning. And I love the time where he goes to the guy, he's like, I need this ready by the time the kettle boils. And it like fits it perfect, and the kettle does boil. The droid's ready, and the droid takes out all these assassins and things. Even tries to take out and get him back in the fight. I thought it was a great moment as well. Just this perfectly Star Wars, and you're waiting for R2 to save the day, R2 to do something specifically, and the droid comes through and helps out. It was phenomenal.
That scene was, to me, a harken to the scene in both Yojimbo and For a Few Dollars More, because Leone, and this is a fact, Leone ripped that movie from Yojimbo and Kurosawa, like frame shot for shot. It's the same movie. It's the scene where he approaches the coffin maker, and he says, all right, I need 5 coffins. And the coffin maker goes to make them. He goes and kills the bandits, and he comes back and he just goes, make it 6. I was just like, oh. And he's like, I need the droid to be fixed by the time the kettle's done boiling. I was just like, oh, dude, that is so Yojimbo. I loved it.
I will say, this was one I almost made number 1 myself, so it's not like I'm not far off with it. Like I flip flopped to my number 1s. So that was your number 1. I'm going to guess you gave it an 11. That's my guess.
Yeah.
Okay, I do better. All right, so my number 1 then, at 10.5, is one you didn't like as much necessarily. You don't remember which one I said now. You're thinking, I can see your head. Which one hasn't he mentioned yet? I don't remember which one hasn't he mentioned yet. This is where I put The Ninth Jedi.
Okay.
At 10.5. I loved this one, and on second viewing, I loved it even more. This is why I kind of chuckle, and I'll talk about this one in a bit. I think this had, and this actually kind of goes in a little bit into our next topic a little bit, but this has the most, it's set up mostly to continue. Like I feel like we could plop this story down anywhere, and we could continue this easily as a world building, because we have the characters in place, we have an adventure already set up, we have a future already mapped out. They already even mentioned that the Jedi are still out there, and they're going to hunt them down, not hunt them down in a bad way, try to track them down and find them. This is set, and you said it best when you said this is like a perfect setup for the Rey movie. It really is. In fact, this was where I looked at the timeline. They actually had a timeline for it being post Rise of Skywalker. Or so, right? So it is set up exactly that way. I kind of wondering myself, like, when did this take place? Is this like during the act of the? Is this during the between 3 and 4 when there's no Jedi there? Is that when this is? Does it make sense? Does it take place there? And when after the Rise of Skywalker, where there are no Jedi except for Rey at that point? We have this one guy who's on an outlier planet who's a Jedi. He's trying to bring these people together. I love that aspect of it. I love that the Sith acolytes came in. The Sith acolytes were there, trying to do wreck shop, and I love the moment. Was it predictable to a degree? Yeah, I'm sure it was, but I love the switch anyway. I love the reveal. I thought it was a wonderful, awesome reveal, and they all have the red lightsabers or whatever. And I actually, the first time I think I saw it, I think I had a hard time accepting the whole like lightsaber changes color. The mood ring lightsaber is what I called it.
I like that. Good.
I had trouble with that the first time. Honestly, this time I had no trouble with it whatsoever because again, I'm like, this is kind of an alternate universe. I can accept that because the storytelling made it a fun thing to add to. So I love the fact that you could throw somebody a lightsaber, they turn it on, and it's like, oh shit, that's a Sith. It's cool to me. It's a cool kind of detecting thing, and I love the fact that like one of them went back into the purple blade towards the end there. I like the only drawback that made it from being perfect for me is the character of Ethan was a little more nondescript than I would like. I like to see more, but I kind of feel like if we got a series, we get more into his background, we get more from him. But I loved Juro. I thought Juro was a fascinating character. There's a quote from the director who said he wanted to make it kind of like an Obi-Wan, like a mysterious kind of character, like Obi-Wan from A New Hope. We don't know much about him, just that he's an old Jedi or whatever. I loved the young girl. I loved her father being a lightsaber maker. I loved the droid pilot. Like these are all characters that like every character in this show kind of felt like they fit in the Star Wars universe. You can see that.
I love his lightsaber design as well. I'm just looking at it now because I was like, I'm pretty sure his lightsaber was different.
Yes.
Yeah, I love his lightsaber design, and he's got like the emblem on the back of his cloak as well. Yeah, he's sounds like character design. He would be awesome.
Yeah, that mech suit was great. Everything else, and I loved I can't remember her name, Lara, whatever was the little girl there. I loved her lightsaber as well, having like that nondescript color because she wasn't quite there yet. Beautiful. I thought it was a beautiful story overall. It was set to go. I love the fact that we have it collecting Jedi. We had to defeat Sith. It was a core Star Wars belief. You had father-daughter moments, the death of a father, the daughter who has to not no vengeance, but get justice for her father, so to speak. But you also have the old Jedi teaching a couple of young Jedi now how to do things as well. I love it. I think it's a phenomenal piece of storytelling, and I give it a 10.5. Like I said, I did go back and forth with the Duel or Ninth Jedi were my favorites, but at the end of the day, this felt a little more pure Star Wars to me. The Duel was pure samurai, which is why I knew it was going to be your number one from the get-go. So I saw this is Maddie's number one, and I love it for it. But Ninth Jedi to me is more pure Star Wars to me. So I love it. So there we go. There's our overall there. I didn't think we both got excited about these series. I know I'm looking forward to season 2. Real quick before I wrap things up, why don't we talk about, so which one would you like to see? Which one episodes would you like to see continue? Why don't we start there? Obviously, I talked with Ninth Jedi. I want to see that continue. What would you want to see more of?
It's difficult. This is very difficult.
You can choose 2 or 3. I don't have to go just one.
Because the duel has technically already been continued.
You know what? I got to bring it up a little bit. Actually, before you go on, I wanted to mention this before. I have read the Duel book, the book that followed the Duel.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan. I wasn't
That's
a fan
fair.
of the book.
I probably would have preferred if I could have seen it.
I think it would have too. I wasn't a fan of the writing style, and nothing against the author. I can't remember the author's name. I'm nothing against the author or anything like that. I found myself when I was reading having to go back a bunch of times because I just I couldn't visualize what was really going on. They had a lot of different kind of vague concepts. I wasn't, I don't know what, it was okay. It wasn't what I pictured the Duel continuation to be. So if we got a Duel continuation, I say we get it into canon and make it, erase the book or do its own thing.
I'm going to say I want a continuation of The Village Bride.
Okay, cool.
Because I feel like you could go one of 2 ways with it. You could go like a Kill Bill style, or you could go fairly Memoirs of a Geisha.
So
I
like that.
I'm going to say The Village Bride.
I like that. I think I would like to see continuation of. No, I was going to say Tatooine Rhapsody, but it's not a continuation of the story. I just want to see those characters again. I kind of want to see the band, like you said, have them in the background of a cantina somewhere. If I was going to choose one more to continue, it would probably be. It actually, there's a part of me that actually wants to see Toby One to continue, in a way, and it's my least favorite of the bunch because I feel like the idea behind it is kind of cool, and we could do a lot with it. I feel like I would get more into it as it went along. I'd get used to the art design, and if we got to know more about the droid, we get more characters involved than just the droid. some people he meets and stuff like that, I think we could see a lot of cool storytelling in that part of the universe, which is kind of weird for me. Least favorite, but I want to see continue more. I don't know. It's kind of cool though. Anyone else you wanted to see continue?
I would love to see Starweaver appear in any Star Wars, just in some random container, as I mentioned. I think the big one for me is maybe you could use some of the characters in The Ninth Jedi for the upcoming movie with Rey.
Yeah.
I feel like that could be done, especially, you know, the lead character. I look at him, I see Andrew Lincoln. I think Andrew Lincoln could like play him in live action. I don't know why Andrew Lincoln specifically, but I just look at him and think, like you want someone who's like fairly grizzled, like a Rick Grimes kind of a guy.
That's fair. That's fair. I could see. Yeah, I can see that. I could see Rick. I could see actually Andrew Lincoln also being in the Elder character, the older Jedi there. The older character could work as well potentially. All right, that's our continuation and everything else. I think we've done a pretty good job looking at the Vision Season 1. I can't wait for Vision Season 2 tomorrow. Any last thoughts on Vision Season 1 or what you want to see in Vision Season 2?
Not really any thoughts on season 2. As I said, I was in the Visions panel, so I kind of know what to expect. I am very much looking forward to seeing all the different cultures around the world and their kind of takes on it, because I know, especially with the studio from India, there is a lot of their culture and religion in that. I believe I remember correctly, the creator even said like he took some inspiration from Schindler's List, which is kind of like, oh boy.
Interesting.
Schindler's List and Star Wars.
Little dark.
Yeah.
All right, then I think that'll end our episode for today. Where can the folks find you, Matty?
You can find me on Twitter at Matty Gunner, Instagram Matty_Gunner. You can find my band Mourner, MOURNER, on all DSPs like Spotify, iTunes, etc. You can find me here every week for Holy Snokes. You can find me here every other Tuesday for Class Action. And what else? That's it.
All righty, you can find me at Paul Denuzio on Twitter. You can find me on this channel all over the place on Holy Snokes, on the Class Action, on Two Mediocre White Dudes, on Film, on Review, on Crown Jewels, eventually on the Harristons. I don't stop working. I just don't.
Man of 1,000 streams.
Exactly. I still produce for Christopher Harlow, the big thing as well. So that also takes up some time. And I got a wife and 3 kids. How does that work? I don't know. I make it work. Again, I want to point out, we have an episode coming up tomorrow on Holy Snokes, a special episode, a bonus episode where we're going to go into the Vision Season 2 on May the 4th be with you. Hope you tuned in for that as well. If you did like this and you're here for the first time, click that like, click subscribe, leave us some comments, talk to us. We have about 405 subscribers now. We are on that goal, that march towards 500 subscribers, a modest goal, then from 1,000 after that. But we'll start hit that 500 first. So share this with your friends, link it up. And if you want to support the channel even more, patreon.com/PLD projects. And if you can't do that, I understand that. I mean, your best thing you can do is watch. The best thing you can do is watch and share it. But if you do want to support a little further, we have a great crew of people. We've got some more content coming in. I want to join people like Austin Cadell, Jeremiah Morris, Matty Kearns, Brandon Buckingham, Jeff Alsterman, John Lestrina. All of you, I couldn't do it without you. I really appreciate all of you so much. Keep the lights on here. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up. But the first thing first, of course, tomorrow. Be back here, same-ish time, because I don't always do the same exact time. Whenever I get done, I have to edit it and stuff. But it'll come out tomorrow, early evening probably. So, yeah. But that's it for tonight. Until next time, of course, well, as always, may the Force be with you, always.